All right. Here we go, guys and gals. And boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, drivers.
And we're live for the Loose Wheel podcast or show.
Not a podcast.
We are not a podcast anymore. I'm still terrible at this. Season 2, episode 48. I'm Andrew Hazlett. That's Ethan Ignatowski, as
What's up, everyone?
usual. But today, we are greeted.
English
we are
is
with
hard. English is hard.
for one of the great people of the world, Mr. Rome Katie. How are you?
What's going on, guys? How are you doing? I'm excited to be here, man.
Yeah, thanks
Let's rock and roll.
Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate the intro. That was a fire intro.
Rome has a Formula One centric. Obviously, we do a whole bunch of different kind of motorsports, but Rome is from the Starting Grid podcast, F1 centric show. You can find it on Spotify. Where else can we find you?
Yeah, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcast. We haven't been on it in a couple weeks because we've been busy, but we're trying to get back on it especially with the end of the season rolling around with Abu Dhabi and awards coming up. So you'll get to hear some more from me and my friend Shane Holcomb pretty soon. So we're excited, but I'm excited to talk F1. I haven't been able to talk about it in a couple weeks. So I'm excited to give my own thoughts on the situation. So I'm excited.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course, bro. Anytime.
There's a lot of F1 stuff to talk about.
It's been a while then since that we've had you on. It was before Imola.
Yeah, it was actually after Imola.
Right after.
It was right after Imola. You guys gave me my my little spiel on everything, which is really sick. So I was glad you guys had me on before that, which is cool.
Yeah. So we want to get into it right away with the
review
of Qatar. All right. So
Yeah.
Rome, feel free to jump in anytime you want. Help me tell the people what happened. And now for next week's race previews. Because first off, I wasn't actually able to watch the sprint race. I was in a bus going down to Tucson, Arizona with very bad internet connection. So
I can attest.
So there was no watching of the sprint going on, no watching of qualifying going on. But I do know the gist of what happened. And before I want to get into that, I want to shout out Red Bull and kind of the effort of the team, because the sprint for Red Bull, I mean, to say it was tough, I think is underselling it. Like, it was a horrific sprint race for Red Bull. Like, Max Verstappen finished behind a Haas levels of horrific. And the team in between the sprint and qualifying, getting ready for the feature race of the weekend, was somehow able to turn that car into a rocket ship. So, as we know now, teams can kind of make some changes to the cars between the sprint and qualifying for the feature race. Whatever Red Bull did, and I don't know exactly what it was, but whatever they did turned that car from a boat to a literal rocket ship. Fastest car, maybe second fastest car. I mean, at that point, it doesn't really matter. Give Max a car with a chance to win. He's going to do something great. So shout out to Red Bull for doing that. Two main things that I want to mention about the sprint race, because like I said, I didn't watch it. I don't know all the details. But two things I want to talk about. First little bit happened at the very start of the race. Sergio Perez and Franco Colapinto were starting from the pit lane. Mm-hmm. Somehow, Perez, who was in front of Colapinto, messed up his pit lane start, which caused Franco Colapinto to just go around him in the pit lane. Like,
I didn't even know that.
Like, I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah, it's just embarrassing at this point with Sergio, and I've heard rumors that he's leaving Red Bull and all that.
We're going to be talking about that later in the show.
Yeah, so we'll see if that, because F1 themselves haven't announced it yet, but obviously we'll get to it when we get to it. But yeah, it's just the comedy of errors just really begin, and like I'll get back to your point on Qatar, but I kind of want to get to Sergio.
Yeah,
like I used to really think this guy was one of them ones, because I don't know if I told you guys when after Imola, but I was just like, this guy still has a lot in the tank, especially like coming into the year, because you look at how well he raced in those street races the last couple of years, like especially in Singapore the last couple of years. I mean, you look at Monaco, the way he won that race, it was incredible what he was able to do.
He's always amazing at Baku,
and it's just he's able to maneuver those street circuits so perfectly, and then for whatever reason this year, it was just a full season of it, because usually last year was just kind of a half season of it. This year was the full season of it. And really, that's why Red Bull hasn't gotten anywhere in the constructors, because it's really been 2 against 1 for McLaren and for Ferrari beating out Red Bull in this situation.
I'm gonna tell y'all a fact about Perez and Verstappen and where their positions are in the championship. We'll get to that at the end of this review segment, but stay tuned for that, because it is quite the statistic. And yeah, like I said, I don't even know what to say about Perez at this point. But jumping ahead to the very end of the race, Lando controlled the race from the start, led the entire way. He was on sprint pole, I believe. If not, he jumped out to the lead right away. And despite the team telling him not to do this, mostly due to George Russell being right behind Oscar Piastri and them probably thinking that Lando would get jumped if he did this, Lando gave up the win of the sprint race to Oscar, essentially repaying him for Brazil. He was able to slot in right behind Oscar, so George didn't jump him for second place in the sprint. I thought it was a really just tip of the cap, hats off to Lando Norris, respectful moment, paying back your teammate for what he did in Brazil. I thought it was nice to see that. Anyways, though, Piastri, Norris, Russell, Sainz, Leclerc, Hamilton, Hülkenberg, and Verstappen were your 8-point scorers in the sprint race. And then let's move on to the main race. Like I said, Verstappen, he got pole, but he didn't. He got a one-place grid drop penalty, which I didn't even know was a thing, for going unnecessarily slow. It was a weird penalty. George moved up to first, and there was a whole bunch of drama between Max and George this weekend, kind of kicked off by this because George was really pushing for Max to get the penalty, and Max said he had lost respect for George because of how he treated that.
Question: so since the penalty was slow, is that the FIA's version of the Lance Stroll Driving of Excellence Award that you like to give out?
No, the Sir Lancelot Medal of Excellence will be given out later on this episode.
That's a fire name, by the way. I give you credit for that.
That's my Andrew has the chicken award.
Oh my goodness.
Which I believe you experienced over summer. Yeah. I have the Sir Lancelot Medal of Excellence. Oh my goodness. You get knighted, you get your little medal.
Got a queen knight you with the award.
I don't know how it works. I'm not a royal, but in my kingdom, that's how it would work. So, that's what happened before the race. But enough pre-race stuff. Let's get into the actual race here. Lap 1, George Russell, he got a nice jump off of the line. But in the second stage of the start, Max came back and took the lead going into turn 1. Lando was able to follow Max and almost jumped Max for the lead, but settled in to second. And there was a lot of mayhem on turn 1 of the first lap of the race. I mean, there was mayhem all throughout the race in turn 1, but especially on the first lap. Yellow flags came out, safety car came out because Nico Hülkenberg locked up into turn 1, caused him to clip the back of Alex Albon, and he went into a spin, collecting Esteban Ocon, who collected Franco Colapinto. Those later two had to retire. And although that move didn't affect Albon too much, shortly after he was spun out by Mr. Lance Stroll. 10-second penalty for causing a collision for Lance. Debatable on if it was racing incident or if it was really a Lance Stroll incident, but the FIA, the stewards decided 10-second time penalty for Lance. So, like I said, safety cars, all that. Race restarted on lap 5. Piastri and Hamilton were able to jump Leclerc and Alonso for 4th and 8th, respectively, on that restart. Also on that restart, Lawson and Bottas collided. Similar situation, 10-second time penalty there for Liam Lawson. We're going to jump now a little bit to lap 13. Pierre Gasly passed his old teammate Yuki Tsunoda for 10th place. And right before that, Yuki was battling K-Mag for 9th. So Yuki had essentially lost out on 2 positions in quick order. And then a lap later, right after that, Fernando Alonso had passed Yuki Tsunoda around the outside of turn 1. So this early-ish stage of the race was not very kind to Yuki Tsunoda. Another jump, 10 laps later. Lap 24, George Russell came into the pits. The race was not really going his way. Like I said, he technically started on pole, fell down to 3rd after just a corner. and now he came into the pits lap 24. He had a slow stop, and he had to kind of fight through the rest of the field. He still finished in a respectable position, but had to fight up through the field. Due to that, he came out of the pits outside of the top 10, where if he had a more normal stop, he would have still been inside the top 10. Now, here is when we get into the point of the race that got me angry, let's say.
Okay, I'm interested.
Lap 30, Alex Albon's wing mirror, his right side wing mirror, literally flew off his car onto the start-finish straight. Now, that's not what got me upset. But instead of the FIA saying, oh, there's a wing mirror on the part of the track that sees the most passing, the most action, let's call a safety car, send out a marshal to pick up the wing, because, you know, picking up put together wing mirror instead of a wing mirror that's been crushed into a million pieces is a lot easier. So call a safety car. They'll go through the pit lane for a lap or two. Marshal will pick up the mirror. It'll all be fine. Race will resume. And why would the FAA do that? You know what I mean? So instead of that, nothing happened. Just yellow flags, double yellows were waved, which just means slow down during that section. And I don't know if this happened before or after the yellow flags were waved, but Valtteri Bottas did run over Albon's wing mirror and scattered parts of it all around that area of the track. So now the situation was even worse. But still, the FIA didn't call a safety car. It was just double yellow flags. It was boring because there was nothing happened during that section, because the drivers couldn't be on the gas. You have to lift off because of the double yellows. And that is the main section of action. And as you could see from what I was saying earlier, there was action happening, but the FIA had now taken that away. And on top of that, Lando Norris, he got a 10-second stop-and-go penalty for not lifting during the double yellows. I believe that was before Bottas ran over the mirror. Might have been after. I'm not exactly sure on that. Either way, like, that doesn't really matter. Either way, he got a 10-second stop-and-go penalty. And look, a 5-second time penalty, a 10-second time penalty for something like that, I totally understand, because you have to lift during double yellows. He didn't lift. You can't do that. That is a clear penalty. You broke the rules. You're going to get punished for it. But 10-second stop-and-go penalty is insane. A 10-second stop-and-go penalty at a track like Qatar, where you drive into the pits, you sit there for 10 seconds, and then you leave. That's what a stop-and-go penalty is. 10-second stop-and-go penalty is more like a 35-second time penalty at a track like Qatar. And I don't think that speeding because there's a broken wing mirror on the track, that the only reason you're speeding is because the FIA won't, the stewards, whoever is in charge of that decision, won't call a safety car. Maybe I'm wrong here,
right?
But I don't think that's worthy of a 35-second time penalty. I don't know, like,
right. And I think, I don't know if you brought this up before, but the fact that Hamilton and Sainz got punctures largely
I'm gonna get to
that
yeah,
is kind of concerning, especially when the FIA could have resolved that as quick as you thought it was going to be. But, you know, I'll let you get to the rest of your thing.
I mean, but like 35-second, it's like, it is just a 10-second stop-and-go penalty, but affecting his race that much, like, that's doing too much, right?
Yeah.
Like, in your opinion, you agree with that?
Yeah, because I think even though I'm not sure if the pit runoff is that long in terms of the pit lane, but like you said, 35 seconds is a long time, regardless of getting in, stopping for 10 seconds, and then going back out again. So that's just kind of what it is.
And like you said, lap 34, 4 laps after Albon's wing flew off, Hamilton and Sainz, like 10 seconds apart from each other, got punctures going through that section of the track. And it doesn't exactly take a genius to figure out why that happened. I just can't understand why the FIA thought that having all this debris on the literal main straight was okay. So, as teased earlier, the stewards, the FIA, I don't know who exactly, I think it's race control, you people, you lovely people, are receiving the Lance Stroll Medal of Excellence for your excellent race management. I just knighted you. Congratulations. Finally, though, 2 drivers getting punctures was enough for them to be like, oh, yeah, maybe we should have a safety car. So a safety car was called. Drivers went through the pit lane, which should have just been the way it was from the start. Lewis Hamilton also got a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane during this sequence, so his race was going from worse to even worse super quickly. Drivers went green on lap 40, and Lando, who had yet to serve his penalty because they were still investigating it, which is another thing. Like, I don't understand how it took so long to investigate if a driver was, if a driver didn't lift during double yellows. Like even if I believe that the penalty that they served him was too harsh, like, I don't understand how the decision to penalize him took so long. Like, it's pretty simple. Did he lift or did he not lift? It was pretty clear he didn't lift. But anyway, Lando had a great restart and nearly took the lead from Max, but of course Max pushed him deep, and like, it wasn't anything like crazy. Like, it wasn't like Mexico all over again or anything. And I'm not saying like I don't have like some major issue with that move. I'm just saying, like, it's Max, he's gonna push you to the edge. So that's what happened there. Piastri also tried to get past Leclerc for a second time. Didn't go his way this time either. So both McLarens tried to make moves, didn't happen. Someone who did make a move on this lap, though, your boy, Andrew, Pierre Gasly, he made a move on your other boy, Carlos Sainz, which I thought was kind of crazy, honestly. I thought it was very impressive, and what I thought was even more crazy and even more impressive is how he was able to stay in front of Sainz, holding on to 5th place. I was surprised that Sainz couldn't get past him. I was surprised that Gasly was able to hold him off. Also on lap 40, just because, literally for no other reason, Sergio Perez spun and Hülkenberg spun too. Just they wanted to do some donuts, some
pirouette moves or something.
Yeah. I think Nico Hülkenberg was inspired by his upcoming boss, Mattia Binotto.
So you're trying to do the Italian accent.
You're trying to bring back the Spinella memes or whatever.
I'd rate the accent a 4 out of 10, but you got to work on it, especially because you're looking at an Italian.
It's like a running, hears it all the time. It's like a running thing on the show. Andrew cannot pronounce Italian things to save his life.
We got to work on that accent.
I always have to jump in and try to help him out.
I mean, listen, I'm part Italian, so I can help you. I'll help you out with that.
You got to give him some lessons.
I got to give you some pointers on the accent.
Yeah,
for sure.
So,
fortunately, we're not doing sports car racing next year, so there goes half of my Italian names I have to pronounce.
Yeah. So
Matteo Cressoni.
Cressoni.
Hey, there you go. You got to take notes from him now. That's the one of the day.
So,
right there.
lap 46, race coming to an end here. 11 laps left. Lando came in to serve his penalty, came out in last place. So from this point on, he was on fresh, soft tires. He was setting fastest laps, of course, on those soft tires at the end of the race. He was trying to get past cars as quick as possible. He was going through the field. Lap 49, Magnussen, after battling Alex Albon for a few laps, and the battles during this race were kind of cool. Like, I mean, especially like the lower midfield battles. I know those don't really interest you, Andrew, but like, hey, I like cars passing other cars no matter where it is on track. So when Magnussen made this really nice move on the outside of Albon for 9th on lap 49, after the two were battling, Albon had pushed Magnussen off track a few laps earlier. I thought it was a really nice move. Wanted to mention that. But then Lando, lap 54, he was able to pass Valtteri Bottas on the straight for 10th place. Not where you want to be, but he got himself back into the points, and like I was saying earlier, fastest lap. So getting that car into the top 10, allowing him to have that extra point for fastest lap as well. Recovered as much as possible, really. Lap 57, Max Verstappen crosses the line to win the race. Like I said earlier, hats off to the Red Bull engineers, mechanics, everyone who was involved in like preparing that car for the race, because they made that car super quick. And like, I feel like we've been dunking on the guy a lot, which I don't love to do, but like the fact that Sergio Perez got into Q3 in that car, I think shows how fast it was, which is kind of crazy.
Fair.
It is kind of crazy that that's a thing that we're saying, but that's honestly
it's
the point
insane.
we're at.
It's insane. It's insane.
So yeah, top 10 for the race: Verstappen, Leclerc, Piastri, Russell, Gasly. Pierre Gasly, man.
He'd just be doing it out here. Well, I got to talk about him in a second.
Ever since
You
ever
said
since I
he
called
wasn't
him
a top 10
yeah, ever
driver.
since I said he wasn't a top 10 driver, he's been performing
kidding.
like
Oh,
I said he was
man.
I said he was
He
11.
listened to the doubters.
I said he was
man.
11. I said he was 11. Like, but still, yes, technically I said he wasn't a top 10 driver. He's been driving like a very high quality driver.
He's got a burner account to Blaze Radio, and he listens to
Right.
this podcast for sure.
So Carlos Sainz then he was in 6th, right behind Gasly. Alonso, and then I didn't talk about this guy at all during my little recap. He had a very what word would you say, like surprising race, but he was just doing his own thing. He was staying out of trouble. Zhou Guan Yu,
yes sir,
dragging that Sauber up
sir.
to 8th. Now it did help that like 5 drivers retired, but he did his thing. He did what he had to do, you know. This is motorsports. You take whatever opportunities you get. So he finished 8th in his penultimate Formula 1 race, so hats off to him there. Magnussen 9th, like I mentioned earlier, and then Norris 10th, picking up 1 point, and then a 2nd point for fastest lap. Not what you want to see for him when he's trying to hold on to 2nd place. Not what you want to see for McLaren, if you are McLaren trying to win the Constructors. And as we do, putting a number rating on this race, like realistically, it was like a 6 out of 10. But the FIA decisions, it kind of ruined the race for me. Made sections of the race just meh when they could have been actually something interesting. Gonna have to give it a final rating of 4 out of 10. I'm dropping it to a below average race.
Interesting. Okay.
I think that it took that much away. That can be debated. I don't know. Rome, if you had to put a number on it, what would you say?
Yeah, I'd probably say like a 5.5. But I also want to get to your points about, Guan Yu and Gasly and all that stuff.
Let's talk about it.
I mean, what a race from Zhou Guan Yu. I mean, P8. I think it was P8, right?
Mm-hmm, it was P8.
Yeah, P8. Great performance by him. Like you said, it was probably like his 5 top guys retired that could have easily boxed him out of the points.
Yeah, not even top guys, but just guys in the
guys
points.
that could have knocked him out of the points anyway. But I mean, shout out to him. I feel like he needed this race for his confidence, especially after leaving Sauber after this year with a whole new lineup with Nico and Bortoletto coming into the fold next year. So I feel like he needed that as like a nice little cherry on top. Like, okay, like it's a nice little send off right into Abu Dhabi. Make sure everything's all nice and demure, all classy.
Never say that again,
stuff.
please.
all nice and classy. We're out of here. We're chilling.
I almost had to kick Morgan off the show 2 weeks
no
ago.
way.
He referenced
that word must haunt you in your dreams.
No, it wasn't. He didn't say demure. He was referencing a certain. I don't even want to say it. Do you want to say it, Andrew?
I forgot.
Okay,
this has been erased from my memory.
He mentioned.
Morgan always be referencing anything at this point.
He mentioned a certain podcast
Red
created by a woman who went viral on the internet for saying something.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay. Cool.
And I had to like kick him off.
You guys,
almost.
you guys could, whoever you are out there, you guys could fill in the blanks there.
Yeah.
If you need explanations, you can ask us. But we can fill out the blanks there. But anyway, I think again, shout out to Zhou Guan Yu. Had a very mellow race from him. Did his thing. And then I want to just get into Gasly because
let's talk about Pierre Gasly. Yeah,
we're talking about a guy who might not. I mean, I say this and then he might just bin it in the wall in Abu Dhabi and absolutely smithereens his car, but he might not cost his team a penny this year in terms of crashes.
Outside of like things outside of his control, like his engine blew in Las Vegas, but like that's outside of his control. I don't think that counts towards.
That's not counts the World Destructors Championship, whatever they call it. Just
right.
The amount of cost they do and all that. I forget who does that, but it's just some random ranking on that. But To see Pierre Gasly actually come into his own and not really bend it in the wall as much as you think he should, like that should be a successful season for him. Even though he might not get a lot of points, he might not get a lot of wins and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And this kind of end to the season for him has been really good. I felt like I feel like he's kind of proven himself as a number one guy now, especially with the fact that Ocon's leaving, and we'll obviously get to that when we get to that.
And Jack Doohan's coming into that team, like he is the number one.
Yeah,
it's
so Gasly, I feel like Gasly's really kind of taking the bull by the horns and just ran with it. And you're really seeing him really come into his own and really, because that car has not bent into the wall, that's why he's getting all these high top 10 finishes for Alpine, especially in that car that's not been good at all this year.
Towards the end of the season, because I think his early to mid part of the season was pretty much nothing. Like, it wasn't anything to write home about at all, but towards the end of the season, he's kind of come alive, taking advantage of everything that comes his way. That's what you have to do. Hopefully he can carry, Alpine's going to hope that he's going to carry that success into next year. I know Andrew's going to be hopeful for that as well. Our resident Pierre Gasly fan, so for sure. And
I feel like he has a lot going for him right now. And then, I know again Abu Dhabi in a second, but I think Lewis, especially in his last race coming in, is going to be a little sentimental. But we'll obviously get to that when we get to that. Yeah. But those are all my thoughts on the Qatar and stuff.
And then, I want to talk about the championship since that was the penultimate race of the year. We're going into the final race weekend of the year. I want to talk about the championship before we get into our news segment. Obviously, we know Verstappen's locked up the championship, but there are still battles going on. Battle for second is very much in play. Lando Norris is sitting in second with 349 points. Leclerc is in third with 341. So if you're Lando Norris, just finish ahead of Leclerc. That's all you have to do. Don't make it complicated. Don't try to do anything crazy. I'm listening.
If we know Lando Norris this season, he's gonna find some way to choke it and bottle it in some fashion or another.
I think that's so unfair.
Because if it's only an 8-point difference, and you look at the way Leclerc's been driving the rest of this year, there's no telling that Leclerc might just wash him out of that discussion anyway and get to that second place.
He could, but I'm gonna back McLaren on this one. I think that they have to pull it off. They know they have to pull it off. They're gonna go there, and I'm pretty sure. Fourth place, Oscar Piastri has locked up fourth place. He's sitting at 291 points, which we're not gonna have the conversation today. But I think there needs to be a little bit of a, because Piastri, as much as Lando has been clowned on for bottling, there has been points of the year where Piastri has just been nowhere. And Oscar Piastri on his day is one of the best drivers on the grid. There's no taking that away from
100%.
him.
Just look at Baku and the way he drove that race.
But there have also been segments where he's been absolutely nowhere, and him being, 291st or 291 points, not 291st, 291 points. Lando's at 349, Leclerc's at 341. Like, there's something that needs to be talked about there. And, I understand it's Piastri's second year, but it's his second year. It's not his rookie year anymore, right? So it means something. We'll see what happens next year. I expect the gap to be closed next year. I expect Piastri to take another step forward.
See, again, listen, I feel like we got to give Piastri the benefit of the doubt, because I still feel like he's going to be one of the top championship contenders next year, along with Leclerc, along with Norris, along with Verstappen, just because of the way he's been able to kind of do his thing.
I'm not going that far until we can see. I don't think you're far off, but I can't say that until we see more consistency.
Right.
And for Lando, too. Lando has been inconsistent as well. Right. This goes for him, too. I'm not... I don't know. Maybe my mind will change, but right now, looking at next year, I'm not penciling him in to win the championship.
I mean, it's not really a penciling. It's just a contender for it. It's a strong contender for it. Because maybe. I think when you look at Piastri, he's always been that guy, I would say kind of like rookie year Zhou Guanyu, where he was just kind of playing around the back half of the top 10, not really kind of getting in the middle of fights, none of that stuff. But I feel like
Oscar was fighting.
No, wait. Let me finish though. I feel like Baku and the way he raced that race, that way he got to P1 and everything, and did his thing, and the way he drove past Leclerc on that overtake through the castle section. Like that to me proved to me like, okay, he's got some dog in him, he's got some hunger in him.
Yeah.
He really wants this, and I feel like if he's able to get that opportunity next year, he'll get that done.
It's not like he wasn't doing things like this last year. They're like obviously like not a race win, but like he got some sprint wins. He had some really nice races last year, and I'm not saying he hasn't taken a jump forward this year, because he definitely has. His tire management this year been a lot better. We talked about that a lot last year, Andrew. I was like, Piastri's pace is so good, and then he just lets the tires die. I've talked about that way less this year. Like, he has made improvements, but I don't think the jump is... And this is probably just people put too high expectations on him because they saw how good he was as a rookie. I don't think he's taken the jump that not everyone, but that a lot of people expected him to take. He's taken a nice jump, but like people put so much on him.
Second year though.
That's my point though. That's my point. Like, I think expectations were placed a little bit too high on him this year. We'll see how he performs next year, and then last little bit of this kind of points thing that I want to talk about, or second to last piece. Sainz in 5th, 272 points going into the final race. Kind of the same thing. Sainz he missed a race and this, that, and the other, but he's a good shot behind Leclerc. Which again, we'll leave it at that. We're gonna have our F1 driver rankings episode at some point during the off season, so we'll delve into that more then. But just pointing that out, I want to get to my little fun fact before we jump into the news. So, Sergio Perez has locked up 8th in the Drivers' Championship. It is his. Lewis Hamilton.
Locked up 8th is crazy.
Lewis Hamilton is in 7th, sitting at 211 points. And literally, mathematically, everything impossible.
Right.
Fernando Alonso is the driver after Sergio Perez. He's sitting in 9th, of course, at 68 points. So Perez is kind of on an island there. 8th is his. Perez being in 8th is the farthest a teammate has been from the championship winner since... You want to take a guess, Rome?
Mika and his teammate in the 90s with McLaren?
Since Jos Verstappen.
No way.
1994. Jos Verstappen finished 10th when Schumacher won the 1994 championship. And here's some context here. There's more into this. It sounds crazier. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just funny because like
just wild.
It's Jos Verstappen and then Perez is behind Jos's son.
That's crazy.
But talking about that 1994 season a little bit, Jos missed 4 more rounds than Schumacher did. There was a weird thing going on with that second car. So Jos had 4 less rounds than Schumacher to get points, and he had to retire in 6 out of his 10 races, which you just don't see anymore, which is like a testament to the reliability. And I don't know if he had reliability issues or if he crashed out, but
it's just the technology back then too that wasn't really that reliable as it is today.
He did only finish 4 races, and when he did finish, he did get 2 third places, so he did perform better than Perez. The stat makes Jos sound worse than he was. It's just funny to me.
It's very ironic, the dichotomy that, you know, because Jos is very that type of controlling father with Max, and it's been well documented throughout his career. And the fact that like now he's probably been talking this stuff about Sergio being like trash and everything, and then now like Max being ahead of Sergio and the whole thing is just
something
it's
like
interesting.
that.
Very ironic.
So
I'll say that.
I don't remember where I saw it. It was all over Twitter. So
as it should be.
Yeah.
Moving into the
And now for the news.
Yeah.
You want to talk
I have an
NASCAR
award
real quick?
Well, we could. Actually, we will. Joe Gibbs Racing names Tyler Allen the crew chief of the number 54 Cup car. And the
Ty Gibbs car.
The Ty Gibbs car. As Gibbs crew chief move over to Hamilton. This could be a great pickup for the Gibbs team. Is Allen in his car won 4 races and was contending for the owners' championship with Gibbs as a rookie crew chief. Granted, he did have drivers such as Christopher Bell, Eric Almirola, John Hunter Nemechek, guys with significant Cup experience driving that car for the majority of the racing. But still, that was fairly impressive.
Right.
So maybe this could possibly be an upgrade for Gibbs at crew chief.
Yeah.
Could also be a downgrade. We will see. It's something to look out for.
Yeah, and I think that going into Ty Gibbs' third season in the Cup Series, like, we know there's talent there, but he's yet to kind of show his full potential. We don't have a win yet. We don't have any, like, signature moment yet. I feel like this upcoming season, it's definitely not make or break or anything, but, like, it's about time that Ty Gibbs starts showing that potential a little bit more, and I think it's gonna be interesting to see if he can do it, and Tyler Allen is a good option to help him get there.
Ty and Tyler. And it is interesting. Truex stepping away, Briscoe now in the team, and then Hamlin and Gibbs with new crew chief. A lot of team dynamic at Gibbs could be changing. Hamlin's getting old too. Just some interesting things to look forward to. And the bigger piece of NASCAR news is there's a possible NASCAR format change.
Yeah.
Kyle Larson said in a quote on, I believe it was Racer on YouTube, "I'm excited about next year, and hopefully we can continue to evolve and get stronger as a team, win some races and lead some maps. And this is where it gets interesting. And who knows what the new format will be. So maybe it will be benefit us somehow." What seems to be getting ideas is the new format, Ethan. You're gonna love this because confusing gets more confusing. I think is that for the playoff drivers.
Okay.
Depending however many are in the round, you get points based off of where you're running to
Where
those
you're
guys.
running?
So, if I finish the race 5th, and let's say it's a round of 8, 5th, and I beat all the round of 8 drivers, I get 8 points.
Okay.
But if I'm 5th of the round of 8 drivers, finishing 5th, I get 4 points. So that's kind of...
So it's where you finish relative to the other
relative.
drivers. Yeah, let's just make it even more confusing, because why not, right?
That's what's on the street. I wouldn't want that to happen, but we'll see what happens.
I feel like the answer is very simple. Go back to something like the Chase.
Mm-hmm. And also the Chase was a great name.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
Problem
to
solved. And for the playoffs are just so manufactured and gimmicky in a way. And I'm not saying, like, get rid of the playoffs, because that's never going to happen. And I'm not saying the playoffs are bad, because I think the playoffs can be exciting. But this current format and the direction that NASCAR seems to want it to take it, it's just, like, I don't know if I've ever heard of a NASCAR fan that enjoys the current format. And I can commend NASCAR for trying something different, but this is just going more down the path of things that people don't like instead of listening to the fans
and drivers.
Because I understand. Look, Twitter and social media, it's not actually the entire fan base, but it does shine a light into the fan base. It shines a light into the most vocal portion of the fan base, and those are the people that I think you need to listen to, because they're the people that care to talk about it and express their opinions about it.
But no, Ethan, NASCAR says Twitter's full of bots, and the fan counts, the NASCAR fan councils where the real NASCAR fans are. Did you know the NASCAR fan council existed before I just brought it up, Ethan?
I think I was vaguely aware of it.
Fun
I
fact.
think you might have mentioned it to me before.
I am a member of the NASCAR fan council because I signed up for the emails.
Who's surprised by that?
Do I fill out their surveys? No.
Maybe you should get
Well,
some.
if you're
I-
going to be a good
so
member of this
sometimes I do.
NASCAR fan council, you got to get on it.
Sometimes I do. Moving back to Formula One.
Yeah.
Big piece of news. Ocon out, Duhan in for Alpine at Abu Dhabi. And I got to say, you know why Alpine just isn't good? They like pulling the plug on things. They like doing stupid things. They like changing their team principles. They're doing stuff like this. So you know what?
They are the Arrow McLaren of F1,
but
but
without
not
the
actually
results.
good.
Not actually good. It's good.
So you know what? That gets them the Chicken Award.
Yeah.
Good job.
So, do you know why this is happening, Andrew?
No.
So, essentially, the reason for this happening is, so you know how Carlos, after he's done with Ferrari, he's jumping right into the Williams at the postseason Abu Dhabi test, right?
Right.
Well, Esteban wanted to do that for Haas, but essentially, Alpine was like, you're either gonna race with us or you're gonna do that. And I don't know exactly how it happened. They're saying that it was mutually agreed upon. You're gonna see in a minute that it seems like it might not have been mutually agreed upon, but they're saying it was mutually agreed upon, that Esteban will step away from the team for Abu Dhabi, and Jack Doohan, who is replacing him next year anyway, will step into the car. It's just a weird situation. Esteban was saying that, like, both sides were saying, like, this isn't how they wanted it to end, and yet this is how it ended. And
Yeah.
Esteban released a message on his Instagram. He said, bear with me while I read this, but he said, I'd like to first and foremost thank the mechanics and engineers across all functions at the track, Enstone, Virai, Chatillon, I don't know French, I assume that's how it's pronounced, who have raced alongside me the last 5 years. We have shared so much together, and I am proud to call many of you my friends. I leave Alpine/Renault with great memories and the pride of having been the driver who has brought the team's best results since its return to the sport, climbing to the top 2 steps of the podium in Bahrain, Hungary, and Brazil. It was also an honor to play a part in finishing P4 in the Constructors' Championship in 2022. And then he kind of just goes on about how, you know, he's thankful. He had a good time at the team. He's been proud during this year, and how he's put in effort and how the team's put in effort during a difficult year, and, you know, saying goodbye and saying how this isn't how he wanted to say goodbye to the team, but this is the way things ended. And he finishes off by saying, you know, F1 is a small world, so I'm sure I will see many of you again soon. And I think this was really respectful as well. He didn't have to do this, but he said, I would also like to wish nothing but great things to my friend Jack as he takes the next big step in his career at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I thought that was really nice of him. And then he finished off showing a picture of his helmet that he was going to wear in Abu Dhabi, showing him lifting up 4 different trophies for the team on the podium. It's sad, man. Like,
It's very sad.
Like the way this is ending, and, you know, he's posting that helmet like it was the plan for him to finish off the season with the team, and it's genuinely so sad that this is the way that things are ending. And there's more to talk about, but we just don't have time. So I would suggest to you guys to read more about this. But that's the general gist of it. Everyone apparently didn't want it to end this way, yet this is how it ends.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting how it did end, and I feel like just straight off the rip, like they did him dirty, because,
yeah,
but like you said, they should have probably given him more of a ceremonious goodbye, like kind of what they're doing with Lewis, because, obviously Ocon is never going to reach the talent that Lewis did, but he kind of had that similar role at Alpine where he was kind of their poster child for the longest time, and he got them all those wins, got them all those podiums. And the fact that you're not representing one of your own like that, especially your fellow Frenchman too, like that's kind of that's really just kind of a nip in the bud right there, and it's sad to see, and they really did him dirty. I wish it could have been different, but I think the only silver lining that you could really take away from this is that at least he's going to another team. He's going to Haas next year. I think him and Behrman, even though that car is going to be okay at best, I feel like
Haas has stepped up.
Right.
They made
improvements. I feel like him and Behrman are going to feed off each other really well. I think Behrman's one of the up and coming young. I think he's going to be one of the up and coming young stars next year, and I think Ocon's going to feed off him pretty well. But again, it just all depends on how that car is, because I feel like both those drivers are pretty good. It's just how that car is managed and how they develop it throughout the year next year.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder because we've seen Esteban have issues with a lot of his teammates in the past, so we'll see how that happens. But
I mean, Behrman's a guy you don't really have issues with regardless. But
it's racing, man. It's racing. We'll see what happens. But yeah, and we'll see if he kind of integrates himself with the team this weekend. Like, will Esteban be in the Haas garage? I have no idea. We'll see. Talking about Jack Doohan a little bit, who is replacing him. We've talked about Jack in the past, Andrew, so I don't want to rehash things we've already talked about. But just a quick reminder to everyone, P3 in 2023 in Formula 2. He spent this year as the third driver for Alpine. If you're a number guy like Andrew, you're probably interested to know that he will be racing with the number 7 on his car. So that will be his number. And we're going to see him one race and about
25 others next year.
Yeah.
But I feel like with Doohan, too, I think it's very interesting because, we all knew he was going to be next in line because he was kind of just waiting the wings, kind of that, like, what Piastri was before he moved to McLaren. And, I'm interested to see how he takes over. And, he had a very, consistent career in F2. He didn't really wow anybody like, Kimi and Behrman and Bortoletto. All those guys have done well. He's kind of just stayed consistent and kind of just been that guy that's been waiting in the wings for that F1 seat now that he's finally got the chance to do it. And we'll see what he can do with it is the biggest thing.
I mean, I've said in the past, you probably haven't heard me say this, but I've said in the past, we as a society have evolved, we've progressed. We no longer have the need for junior formula results.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, what else are you going to do with F2 and F3 anymore? Like,
I mean, F2.
Are they just pointless to you at this point, or?
A little bit, because I mean, this is an hour-long conversation for another day. But fair. F2, it's not that it was ever a spec series, but I think it's about as far away from a spec series as it's ever been right now. But that's a completely different discussion. Andrew, what would you like to say?
I'm holding up the number 1 for my two co-hosts here. That one represents Doohan's only signed for 1 year.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Just interesting to know.
Very interesting.
Moving on.
Next piece of news is it's not news actually. It's a rumor, but I'm gonna read the lead, the first sentence from Nate Saunders' F1 article on ESPN. It reads as followed: Sergio Perez is set to leave Red Bull at the end of the 2024 season. Sources have told ESPN. Now, again, rumor. Sources have told ESPN. No one has confirmed this. But, I mean, I trust ESPN as a news source, of course. So I think that going forward, we can expect that Abu Dhabi will be the last race for Sergio Perez. Christian Horner had some comments. I don't know exactly, but he kind of said that Sergio Perez, it's up to Sergio Perez if he wants to step away from the team or not, which you can either read it as Horner isn't going to fire Sergio, or you can read it as Horner is giving Sergio a chance to retire before he gets fired. Depends on how you want to read that.
Or it's just an ultimatum type of thing.
Yeah, which is what it would be. If Sergio does leave the team if he's removed from his seat. It is rumored that Liam Lawson, not Yuki Tsunoda, would be the one to replace him.
Morgan fit to his knees as we speak.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is another thing that we'll talk about who replaces him more when that news officially comes out. But it does look like it's going to be Liam Lawson. And look, if you're Liam Lawson, this is both the best and worst news of your Formula One career. And if you're Yuki Tsunoda, this is the worst and it's also the best news of your Formula One career. Because as seen by Sergio Perez, one of the best... Sergio Perez was coming off of one of the best midfield runs in recent memory. And he got absolutely chewed up and spat out at Red Bull. Alex Albon absolutely chewed up and spat out at Red Bull. Pierre Gasly before him absolutely chewed up and spat out at Red Bull. And these are drivers, Perez, Albon, and especially Albon and Gasly. They've bounced back, but Perez, he's probably not going to get an opportunity to bounce back. These were drivers they were highly regarded going into that seat, and they got, like I said, chewed up and spat out. So we'll see how Liam Lawson, or if it does end up being Yuki Tsunoda, how they handle it. And then regardless of which one of the RB drivers would be called up to Red Bull, sources have told ESPN that Isaac Hadjar would step into that second RB seat, which is the obvious choice. He is contending for the Formula 2 championship. He is the highest kind of ranking Red Bull junior driver outside of Formula 1. I think they still have Ayumu Iwasa in their junior mix. Technically, he's off in Super Formula, so depending how you want to rank those two series. Isaac Hadjar, again, once he gets confirmed, we will dive more into Isaac Hadjar, but he is in the title fight for the F2 Championship. I believe he's like half a point behind Gabriel Bortoleto as we speak for the F2 Championship. All I'm going to say about Isaac Hadjar now is if you think that Yuki Tsunoda's radio messages are wild, if you think Yuki Tsunoda is crazy over the radio, oh, you've seen nothing yet. Get ready to learn Isaac Hadjar. that is Isaac Hadjar. You are something else on the radio, my friend. And then I mean, anything?
Yeah. I know we only got a couple minutes, so I'll try to make this quick.
Yeah.
But, I think, especially with Perez leaving Red Bull, again, comedy of errors. We've seen this before from him. Just horrible season all around, like I mentioned at the top. As opposed to who's going to try and get in there, I think it's going to be very interesting to see who is going to be in there between Lawson and Tsunoda. I believe it should be Lawson because I still think Tsunoda's just not ready for prime time yet as much as although he's way more experienced than Lawson is. I just feel like Lawson has got more talent than him. But to your point about the chewed up and spit out, though, too, like, either of them, if they both got into that car, would have been privy to that. And, like, at that point, you're like, what other options do they have at that point? Because, like, you're not going to get anyone that's on the grid that's
I'm not saying
guy.
It's a bad move for Red Bull. I'm saying that it could be seen as an unfortunate move for the person.
Right. It's just kind of a lose-lose situation because you succumb to the power that Horner and Helmut Marko have on you, and that's what basically prompted Ricardo, Albon, Gasly, and now Perez is what we're rumored to think, just all spat out because Helmut Marko is he's kind of just lurking in the trenches, but he's always kind of been that kind of power that's kind of put a lot of pressure on these drivers, and that's what's kind of made them crumble. And the biggest question for me is whoever steps in that seat, who is really going to be that type of guy to just go in there, drive, not worrying about this outside pressure that's surrounding you. I know it's hard for a lot of these drivers because the mental side of it is so tough, but you have to try and close that out and just go drive if you want to contend with Max and if you want to go back to your Constructors' Championship winning ways that Checo was able to keep up with Max now and not have it be a 2v1 disadvantage with other teams like Ferrari and McLaren who are obviously going to have better driver lineups than you do. So that's kind of the biggest thing.
Me and Andrew are going to talk more about that later on in the future. For now, though, and thank you, Rome.
Of course.
We are going to move on to our final bit of news. Andrew, Rome, The Qatar Investment Authority has bought a stake in Audi. See what I did there, Andrew? Do you see what I did there?
Yeah. And are you gonna get me a steak?
No. I'm a broke college student.
It's too expensive.
Anyway.
Interesting.
The Qatar Investment Authority, this Motorsport Authority, is reporting that the Qatar Investment Authority's stake is going to be around they are the third largest shareholder in the Audi Volkswagen group with a stake of around 10.5%. And its investment in the Sauber F1 team will make it the third West Asian country with significant investments in F1. Basically, just saying that, like, Saudi Arabia is invested in Austin. Bahrain is invested in McLaren. This is another Middle Eastern group investing in Formula One. I don't know if it's good or bad for the sport. That can be debated. But I think for Audi, it's obviously good because they will obviously have a lot of backing from the Qatar Investment Authority, which has a lot of money to throw around, help Audi improve, help Audi get up the grid as soon as possible. And now for next week's race picks. Now we're going to run through pick points because we don't have a lot of time. I am leading Andrew 357 to 344. Guests are all the way down in 276. I have a shot to win the championship. Andrews technically still has a shot to win the championship as well. Quickly last week, Gabriel Bortoletto.
Let's just say we each got 7 points.
We each got 7 points. Sure.
Guess got 8.
F2 Abu Dhabi sprint race. You have Isaac Hadjar. Second in the championship, basically first. Like they're essentially tied. I have Jack Crawford. He's pretty solid in sprint races.
Rome, who do you got quickly?
Ooh, I'll go Bortoletto.
Okay,
you got Bortoletto. And you have Bortoletto to take the main race, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
I have Isaac Hadjar to take the main race. I just think he has a little more experience there. I think that might help him a little bit.
I'll go Behrman.
Okay.
Behrman, okay. And then for the podium in Formula One, no sprint this weekend. Last race of the season. Andrew, you have Verstappen winning the last race of the season. I have Lando Norris winning the last race of the season. I think that McLaren, they have to come out, get something done. Think they'll do that.
You want me to just give you my full
I
podium?
think McLaren quickly, Verstappen's going to put a gem on his championship.
Okay.
So you want me to go full podium?
Yeah, full podium.
1, 2, 3.
All right,
Yeah,
I'll go Piastri 3, Norris 2, Verstappen 1.
Okay. And then you have Leclerc and Lando rounding out your podium, Andrew. And then I have Verstappen and Leclerc rounding out my podium. So you and me, Andrew, same personnel, different order. You think McLaren's going to have a really strong weekend?
Yes.
Rome. And now for next week's race previews. Abu Dhabi, last race of the season. Lewis Hamilton's last race with Mercedes. Whole lot of stuff. Sainz's last race with Ferrari. Don't miss it. It'll be the end of the season. It's going to be an end of an era in Formula One. So, yeah, and thank you so much for staying with us here tonight, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you all for coming on. Thank you, Rome, for being on
Appreciate it, fellas.
here. See you next week. Breakdown After Dark is coming right up.
To me, it looked like he actually lost the wheel.
The wheel for Ross Chastain is still and perfect.
Wheel on the track.
You leave the wheel loose.
You picked the fine time to leave me loose, wheel.